I think what's really cool about real estate is doing the things that no one else is willing to do and the impact on the community that it has. A lot of the projects I do are not just to grow the balance sheet. Instead of buying more real estate, I spend a lot of time improving the stuff that I have for the people that live there. I think that's a lot cooler because I can do it without anybody else knowing other than the people that live at the building, and they're grateful. And that's more meaningful to me than, oh, I got 1,000 units that I have control over that are a little bit worse off and that I have to spend more time managing.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. And I have Cody Davis with me, and I am excited to bring you Cody, and here's why I'm excited. Cody's new to me. I got to meet Cody at the ITI meeting. Bronson invited him to the ITI meeting, and I'm like watching this kid. He's 25, so I think I can call him a kid, right? Watching this kid, and I'm like, you know what? He's not lost. He very intentionally is implementing a strategy that will lead to financial freedom and probably have very little financial hardship in it. He's cultivating the life he wants to be living now, intentionally and consciously. And I feel like that's the kind of person I like to highlight on my show, and I like you guys to meet, and I want you to listen to his thinking and how it is that he chooses this and how it is he gets there. So Cody, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you in person, and this will be a lot of fun as an extension of our conversations.
Yeah, I think so too. So bottom line, your history. Who is Cody Davis? Okay, I think you're cool, but what do they need to know about you so they know you're cool?
Well, my name's Cody, born and raised in Tacoma, Washington. For those who don't know where that is, it is just south of Seattle. And I didn't really know I was going to get into real estate until I dropped out of college, my first year of college. But prior to the real estate business, got into gymnastics. I'd done gymnastics for about a decade. I had coached for 4 years. I was going to originally go to college for business and kinesiology, out of all things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ended up not doing any of that. Dropped out, got my license, failed as an agent. Took 6 months. I fit the standard role of not selling anything for 6 months and then selling a tiny little deal that helped me get by.
Yep.
But where I've really launched in real estate was the seller finance route. I found opportunities. First one was on the MLS. The rest of them were on Google Maps. And I was able to buy a bunch of apartment complexes with $0 out of my own pocket that cash flow day one with long-term fixed rate debt. And that's how I really built my business over the last 5 years to about 200 and change rental apartments and a waterfront hotel.
You know, again, I thank you for the summary. Is perfect, nice and short. I love it. Tell us, what was it? What was your moment where you realized real estate was going to be where you wanted to go and maybe not a more traditional route?
Well, it happened before I ever committed to going into real estate. My high school senior year, one of my teachers, he was teaching us about torts, and he was my civics teacher.
Mm.
He was an attorney, and he said, hey, if you come to school last day, nobody comes anyway. He said that he would teach us how to make money when we sleep. And he went on to tell us about how he bought all these houses for $5,000 way back when and rents them out, and they appreciated and rented out. And all my buddies just said, well, you can't buy houses for $5,000 anymore.
Right.
And so that stuck in the back of my mind. Well, fast forward, I started going to college. I was 2 quarters in, and I was cleaning up, like pressure washing, working on the exterior, painting houses for a contractor of my dad's friend.
Mm-hmm.
He was working on a project, and he said, hey, if you want to make a little bit of extra money, broke college kid, right? And I should go join him. And he invited me to a Facebook group online, made a little post. Someone said I should drop out of college, get my license. And that's ultimately what got me going into the real estate space.
So it wasn't that you were running away from something, like you weren't running away from a job you hated. Was it because you were running towards something? Is it because you didn't want to be something else?
Well, my thought process was if I wasn't going to go to college, which was against what my family was about, I had no family in the real estate space. And they had really done the traditional route, go to college, get a job, save money, invest for the long term, and one day you can retire. And that was the whole mantra. And so I didn't know how I was going to make enough money to do all that. I didn't think I was smart enough for a job where I could work up the corporate ladder and get a high paying job. So I figured, you know what? Someone says I can get into real estate, I can make money, I could buy a property eventually and rent it out. That'll help boost my income. That's something I want to work towards. So yeah, I was definitely chasing the goal and the objective of if I'm not smart enough to go earn that amount of money in the corporate world, maybe I can buy real estate eventually and increase my income that way.
All right. Speaking of not smart enough, I'm going to tell you one of my stories. So I'm ADHD and dyslexic. And so in second grade, I was put in special ed school. Right? It's like pulled out of the regular classroom, put in, the dummy classroom, right? At least that's what they used to call it. Now in California, they don't do that anymore, right? And my special ed teacher said I'd never make it to college. There was no way I'd make it through college. My family all does college, lots and lots of years of college. My mom has a PhD. My grandmother has a PhD. My husband has a PhD. Here I am, this little dyslexic kid, right? Obviously, I hadn't met my husband yet, but there's this little dyslexic kid, and my teacher says I'm never going to make it through college. And there's a part of me that just went, forget her, right? Like I may not be good at school, but I'm not necessarily dumb. And so I did. I got my bachelor's in business and I got my teacher's credential and I have a master's in psychology. And so I made it through college. But I knew
That's
I
huge.
didn't, huh?
That's huge. And congrats.
Thank you. I knew I didn't have it in me to fight my way up a corporate ladder. I didn't have it in me. Like I remember being a receptionist at 17 and with the four Persian brothers. And there was this top sales agent. His name was Andrew. And Andrew would stand in front of my desk and yell at me because I would get his messages wrong. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to work well. This is not going to be good for me. Right. And so when
Yeah.
the possibility of real estate opened up for me, the possibility of I could do what I'm good at, I could do what I'm excel in, which is math. That was always my best subject. Right. And it didn't involve me having to write a lot of crap. Right. And I could deal with finance or people, right? Masters in psychology. I went, I can
Yeah.
do that. Right. But it part of it was just I'm not cut from the cloth that would do well in an environment where I need to do 9 to 5 and I'm competing with a lot of other people to somehow be special. Like I couldn't do that. Does that relate to you?
Well, it it doesn't, but for a different reason. So I didn't have ADHD or those setbacks,
Hmm.
but I was highly introverted.
Okay.
So I was uncomfortable working with people and connecting, which would make it very difficult to be in the corporate environment. And as a real estate agent, my thought process was I can just work with one person, which I later found out was not how it works. But the thought was I could just work with one person. I don't have to be super social. That was wrong. But eventually grew into a more social role. But the thought process was I could do this because if I worked in a group environment, I was super uncomfortable, and I viewed that as a massive setback.
Okay.
So I could relate, but for a different reason.
We all have our reasons. And people who say they don't have a reason, I'm like, really? Okay. I hear that. We all have something. We all have a movement inside of us, something that was uncomfortable, something that was hard.
Yeah.
What in your history feel like really prepared you, either in your history or your skill set, that actually prepared you for being successful? Like being an introvert might actually serve you because you are more thoughtful or intentional, or like what in your history actually helped you?
When I went through high school, I had taken a bunch of classes. I went through AP languages, AP uh, calculus. I did a bunch of different advanced placement things because I thought that was what I had to do. I thought that was the
Mhm.
logical progression because that was just the next step. So I did it. And I noticed whether it was in a writing class, whether it was in a math class, all my friends spent hours and hours. Like they would do 8 hours for one essay. And I would spend maybe 40 minutes
Mhm.
and they would get the A and I would get a B plus and an A minus.
Okay.
And I didn't strive for perfection. I strove for what is the most efficient path to be above average.
Okay.
And the difference of the 7 hours that they invested to get an extra maybe 6% higher score than me, I just didn't care about that. That seemed like there was diminishing returns. And
Inefficient.
so
Yes,
I
diminishing returns is a perfect description.
so I didn't know if that was the case, but that's how it felt. I looked around and was like, they're blowing so much time to do just a tiny bit better when I could still have a good GPA, high threes. I'm not going to fail any of my classes. I get a lot more sleep than they do. I'm not burnt out like they are.
Mm.
And they do just a tiny bit better. It seemed like the return, the reward was a lot better for me to get the B plus and the A minus than to blow an extra 7 hours in an evening, not sleep. And I was happy with that. And I think that's translated well into the real estate space. People are typically set in their own ways for better, for worse. And a lot of people in real estate think that you have to follow a specific structure to get the end goal. And I've found that that's not true. You don't have to fit one mold. There's a lot of ways to do it if you're open to it. And if you do good math, then you don't have to buy the conventional route. And that's, I think, one contributing factor for why I've built the business that I did.
I think the diminishing returns is a really good example of what I feel like I wouldn't have used that languaging, but when I listen to your story and I go, what is it that he's doing inside him that makes him successful outside of him? That diminishing returns efficiency is one of those things,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it served me well. And I'm not the best operator. I'm not the best business person. Not the best capital raiser or property manager. But I spend enough time to where I'm not getting consumed by the business, and I get almost exactly the same result. Which, at the end of the day, it's not about being busy. It's about building a business that can take care of you, and I'm content with that.
Yeah, it is interesting that you can keep your ego out of the way. A lot of people, including myself, you point at somebody else, four fingers are pointing back at you. So, including myself, I've used real estate to
Yeah.
try to be special. And when I've used real estate to try to be special, I pretty much those projects don't do well. I either get exhausted or they don't sell well or something inside the project itself just it fails and the stress goes through the roof. And I've learned to not do real estate so that I feel special, like it's my thing. It's my fail point versus my success point. So it's interesting to me that you can keep the ego out of the way and just go, look, diminishing returns. I'm looking for something that's effective, not something that's about how cool I am.
Yeah, and I don't think the real estate is what makes people cool, or just owning more to own more is a flawed business model. It creates a lot of inefficiencies and it makes a lot of work. I mean, it's a big job just to own more stuff, to have a bigger assets under management balance sheet. Or I think what's really cool about real estate is doing the things that no one else is willing to do, and the impact on the community that it has. A lot of the projects I do are not just to grow the balance sheet. Instead of buying more real estate, I spend a lot of time improving the stuff that I have for the people that live there.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot cooler because I can do it without anybody else knowing other than the people that live at the building, and they're grateful. And that's more meaningful to me than, oh, I got 1,000 units that I have control over that are a little bit worse off and that I have to spend more time managing. There's better ways to do it.
What's the secret sauce of your company? Let's talk about how, I mean, we just talked, we've been sort of nailing it in our questions anyways, the way you approach it inside of you, the willingness to accept diminishing returns and therefore an effective and efficient model, not a model based upon looking good. But I think there's more in there. What's the secret sauce of your company as far as like the seller financing, how you do that? What do people need to know to be successful?
To the extent that you can simplify your universe, it becomes repeatable. There's a lot of ways to get busy in a business and get special deals done with special clauses. But every time you add a complicated step, it makes it harder to do it over. And if it's not repeatable, it's not worth much. Because if it's not repeatable, the next person can't do it. You can't exit the deal the same way you got into the deal. And that makes it tough to scale and keep things efficient. So if your goal is to get to $10,000 a month, you should find the simplest, most efficient path to get there, not a convoluted, oh, I'm going to buy um, 40 units and then I'm only going to focus on that asset to value add and then sell it and buy something bigger and buy something bigger and buy something bigger and make $100 a unit. You could probably get to your 10 grand a month goal with 20 units in total if you built a business model around that. So I would just try and keep it as simple as possible, find the most efficient path that causes the least amount of heartache and stress.
I can't remember his name, and someday I'm gonna have to memorize this because I quote him a lot. There's a guy who's sort of like, they call them masters of real estate, and they do it in Las Vegas. And basically, they're my mentors. They're the old guys, like they're really old now, like they're in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? But they were teaching when I was a young investor, and one of them is the 10+1 model: own 10 homes, eventually pay them off free and clear, own one more so you can pay the property taxes on the other 10 homes, and you've got a portfolio and you've got a retirement plan.
Yeah, it's as simple as it is. It doesn't have to be any more complicated.
Yeah. All right. So how do you get people to do seller financing?
I ask them for it and I don't add any fluff. It's very simple. People have what you want. And if you connect with them, you might get an opportunity to buy it. But the actual owner financing piece is very simple. There's a promissory note. There's a deed of trust if you're doing it, and you're actually going to transfer over title. If you're getting what's called, there's legal and equitable title, you can do it with a real estate contract, which is a little bit different. But it just comes down to the ask. And I think the biggest piece of my story, why I've been able to scale effectively, is I built my whole portfolio without asking for the sale, which is very different than how most people run their business. Most people make a lot of calls, they ask people to sell to them. That's fine. My business model has been calling people to grab coffee or lunch and learn how they built their business. And as a result, I let them know some of my goals. They talk about theirs, and they have more often than not offered to actually sell something to me. They already know my pieces. They know I'm not coming from a ton of money. And so I just asked the question, would you be open to holding a contract or do you need to be cashed out? And the philosophy there was, I'm asking if they're open to holding a contract or if they need to be cashed out. I put necessity on one. That's probably not the case. And I put the option on the other, which is something I'd rather do. And they've offered more times than not to seller finance because it moves me forward, it moves them forward. But at the end of the day, you get it from asking. Most people are uncomfortable. They beat around the bush. They try and negotiate on one term or on price too hard, and they get shut down. It's just an open conversation between people that you've met with and connected with. And if you're going for a transaction, you'll probably get one. If you go for the relationship first, you can get a lot of opportunities down the road.
Well said. Well said. What's happening in your business model and industry right now? What are you doing to prepare for what's coming your way?
Right now, I'm not pushing rents up. I could, but I am placing the whole portfolio as a whole, all the apartments, cash flow, which is wonderful. But I could push the rents up a little bit more. I am waiting to see what happens. I've got long term fixed rate debt on the majority of the portfolio. I just bought something on a bridge loan, a huge value add project, so I'll have to refinance that. But I'm not touching anything. I want to maximize occupancy, reduce turnover for the next year and a half, and see what happens. Because a lot of the construction projects are going to be completed in my market in the next 6 months. And so I'm really trying to reduce my turnover so I don't have to compete with all the brand new stuff. I want to have long term leases so that I don't have to compete with them, because I do think once those all fill up that I'm going to have a pretty big rent bump because no one else is building anything other than those projects.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a supply issue again in the coming years. So I'm just trying to chill out, get happy tenants, not get people to leave, sign their renewals. I'm happy with the cash flow, and we'll look at pushing the rents up as I optimize the real estate more once other people are done doing their big projects in town. Because I buy in a small area. There's 30,000 people. It's not a main metro.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds very regional, very neighborhood and regional specific, which most people aren't necessarily that sensitive to, and is a good thing to be sensitive to. Location, 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 right? So to me, the location, location, location terminology literally means the big city, the neighborhood, and my street, right? Location, location, location. So you're really on my street and my city.
Yeah, and it's something that I've been very focused on is who are the players in the market that are coming in,
Hmm.
whether it's employers bringing new people. Had a lot of people, 600 people just moved to a town of 30,000. So just overnight, it's getting more popular. Things are leasing faster than they should.
Hmm.
And that's great. Eventually that'll stop. But I'm also watching all the players that are coming into the real estate market when their projects are scheduled to complete, because there's a lot that's going to go on in any given market. Every real estate market's different. But on mine, there's a couple hundred units under construction right now. So I really want to chill out until those are done in full. Because after that, you can't just pop up another 100 units overnight.
Yeah.
So that'll be my expansion time to push the rents up as I'm optimizing the properties now, bringing in the amenities without pushing the rents, so that people are more likely to stay through the upcoming uncertainty.
So you have an upcoming uncertainty locally in your city, in your region, right? Because you've got the new units coming online. You're stabilizing your existing units in order to be able to manage that. Oh, we're going to have a couple hundred units come on the market. I'm going to have a high level of occupancy. I'm not so worried about it, right? Once those units
Right.
fill, then I can start pushing, right?
Yep.
What about uncertainty in a larger, more macro way? Are you a follower of that or not so much? You don't think that's so important? Because you are a spirit, your neighborhood is very contained.
It's very important to look at the macro level, what's going on with new things that are being issued, new laws are coming into place. Washington's not an easy place to manage, that's for sure. Neither is California, for that matter.
That's true
But
too, yeah.
the I mean, what's the law today versus yesterday versus tomorrow? Who knows? My attorney, right? So I can't follow all of that on a day to day
Yep.
basis. But there are a lot of things that are changing with policies, and while I do think that's important, everybody in the market that you buy in is going to have to play by the same rules if they're playing above board.
Hmm.
And so if things get worse, it gets worse for everybody. That'll create new opportunities. And I heard the saying a while ago: there's difficulty with every opportunity, and there's opportunity in every difficulty.
Yeah.
And if you're one to capitalize on the opportunity, you play where the goalposts are. If they shift, then you shift. But until then, I'm focused more so on my street,
Yeah.
my neighborhood, my city. Because while I could monitor everything that's going on in the country, what happens in New York is not going to directly impact right now what's happening in Moses Lake as much as what's happening in Moses Lake will.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is the advantage. I mean, it's a it's a tight little plan. And I have to admire it, right? Moses Lake, your mentors, your stabilized business, cash flowing day one with seller financing, developed through having active conversations with people and very human one on one, which fits, your diminishing returns model, but also fits your being an introvert. Like, I like to be with one person. I'm having one conversation. I'm relating authentically to the human being in front of me. That works inside of my ecosystem of who I am versus trying to manage a big marketing campaign or 60 different clients that are thinking about buying houses, or like it's a model that lets you be successful because you're using your strengths versus doubling down on your weaknesses.
Absolutely. And focusing on your strengths so that you can win with the pieces you have is super important. There's a lot of things I'm not very good at, but if I just focused on those, I couldn't really optimize the stuff that I have in front of me.
Okay. Tell me about a deal that went right and how you set it up for success.
My first deal was a good example of that. The first property I bought, 12 units. It had an opportunity to build out a 13th unit, which I have since done. I did it 3 years after I bought it. But the reason it went right is I bought it cash flow positive off the day one income. The seller finance note was 30-year fixed, no balloon, which has really been the focus of my whole business. A long-term fixed rate debt with cash flow. That's basically a home loan. And I had enough cash flow to service my debt payments, my operating expenses, to stack money every single month. And I had immediate room for growth. Without adding the unit, without spending any money, I could more than double the existing cash flow after all the mortgages. And so that deal's gone really well. And since I bought it, I've used some of the profits from it to replace the electrical panels, to add the other unit. And what originally cash flowed close to 1,000 a month is now closer to 5,000 a month. And the mortgage will never change. It's fully amortized. It's paying itself off every single month. So that deal's gone quite well. And that is what I use to build a lot of my portfolio. I didn't lever against it to buy new stuff, but the story of that, it was just a deal sitting on the MLS for 551 days. Came in, negotiated a debt product that made it work. And not getting the home run, but just getting on base, that's really created the whole business model. And I think more so than just the cash flow every month, that deal alone has helped me launch my career.
Good description. Okay. Tell me about a deal that went wrong. You keep alluding to these last 5 years was a learning curve for you. So give us a little peek into that, because all of us who've been in real estate for a long time know viscerally, personally. It's the 2007, 8s, and 9s. It's the 2015s having too many flips going at the same time. My personal history where I've been up against it has made me and cultivated who I am as a human being and made me stronger and made me a better person. Like, it literally, like a better human being and like
Yeah.
a better person to do business with, because I'm more humble, I'm more authentic, I'm more honest, and I'm more prepared. So tell me about a deal that went wrong, or tell me about this learning curve you keep alluding to.
I bought a waterfront resort, Robin Hood Village Resorts over in Union, Gold Mile, top 20 most beautiful places in America. I think that was on Forbes or something. I should know that since it's my place. But
Okay. Efficiency. Remember
beautiful.
efficiency, not memorization.
Yeah, right. Beautiful location, cabin getaway in the woods, and we got the waterfront, really nice views, and a very cool historical background of the area. And so we bought that. I bought that with my buddy Christian, seller financed. We bought it with $0 out of our own pocket, and we bought it thinking, we can run this. We own apartments. We could probably do hospitality. No. So we had the best income year ever, not by much. It was only by a couple $1,000s, which is what we call a rounding error in that size of hospitality deal.
Yeah.
But our expenses were about 30% higher than any prior year because we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
And so we learned a lot. We're going to get that in check this year. But the biggest reason that was a learning curve for us is it was a distraction from what we knew. We're still going to make money on it. And it's a very cool asset. Every time we go there, like, wow, we own this. That's pretty neat. This is different than the apartments. And it's a cool story. It's made us money. But if we just focused on what we knew in the apartment space, our bread and butter, we'd probably own another 100, 150 apartments today. We would be
Mhm.
at a similar leverage point. But again, the efficiencies there, if we were just owning, instead of 200 apartments, if we own 300, 350 apartments in one location, because we'd just be buying up our current market.
Mhm.
We didn't have to focus on any other businesses. The management would be more streamlined and more effective. We could have more employees in the location. We'd have better market control of rents.
Mhm.
And we wouldn't have to worry about this side business of hospitality, which does make a lot more money than the apartments, just like in income.
Mhm.
But
Sure.
it takes more time, and it doesn't really follow the approach that I've taken to business.
Thank you. It's a really good story about the staying in your lane, right? Even this, you've only been investing aggressively, I guess, for like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even in 5 years, you've kind of gone, oh yes, the staying in my lane. Here's what that means. That's really good. So I got to ask this question. Normally, the question is, what does financial freedom mean to you? But you have, I'm going to guess, you've gone from, I want to create an income because I know I don't want to do the 9 to 5. That's not my type of environment. It doesn't work for me. It's not ergonomic for me as a human being. And I don't want to like try to climb that ladder. You wanted to create income for yourself, but you intentionally or unintentionally have also created effectively a successful growing portfolio that's going to go beyond just, gee, I've got enough income for a 25-year-old. Like you've got this whole thing, right?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot because right now I'm 24, 6 years till I'm 30. By the
24.
time
Okay.
yeah, by the time that I'm 30, I if I just keep doing my approach, I'll probably have half the portfolio paid off.
Hmm.
I'm not the type of person that's going to lever forever, but I'm guessing personally would have a couple hundred apartments without partners, half of them being paid off.
Hmm.
It's definitely going to grow into something bigger, and there's going to be a lot more that I have to learn to be able to do that. I heard something online that says the reason you are where you are is because you can't manage more yet, and so
Yet.
I, I have I have to learn how to manage a bigger portfolio on my own without partners before I can actually go do it. So it's going to be a lot of little pivots in the business as I grow into that role. So there's going to be a lot more to do. But to your point, yeah, it's definitely evolved bigger than I thought it was going to.
So what does financial freedom mean to you? Like if you're developing this thing, what's its purpose?
Well, there's a lot to give back. I'm doing some bigger projects. I just did a roofing project on one of my properties that it costs more than a lot of my down payments have
Hmm.
cost.
Okay.
And I was thinking to myself, I just spent all this money and no one's ever going to see it. It's a flat roof. No, literally no one will ever see it.
The
And
pigeons will see it. The pigeons will see it. I
yeah,
can attest to that, but that's it.
but the problem was that the building had been leaking for probably a decade. There was so
Yeah.
much rotted wood. The people that were in there were just living with it. They had little buckets, and I was thinking that
Wow.
financial freedom to live the life you want to live, but then to be able to give I'm a huge Dave Ramsey follower. Even though I have a lot
Yeah.
of debt, I do appreciate his teachings. And the ability to live and give like no one else, that's pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
been decades and no one's given the properties that like some of these properties that I'm buying are quite nice and the others are not. So being able to really give back, because if I buy a 32 unit apartment building, that's its own little community. And if nobody's taking care of the community, the people there they're just going to feel like they come home, they had a bad day, they're just down on their luck, they never get out of the rut. But if they come home and the place is well cared for, even if they have a bad day, at least they have a warm place to stay that's clean, presentable, upgraded, nice. The landlord actually cares about them. Like that type of impact, the ability to do that, not just to be financially free and retire earlier. There's a movement on that, but
Yes.
on the bare minimum, but the ability to take care of yourself and impact others, and it doesn't affect your own financial situation materially.
Mm.
That's what I shoot for.
Beautifully described, Cody. It's lots of people, it's because they're hurting. It's freedom over their time, freedom to get away from a job they hate, freedom to make choices. And you're busy going, yeah, that's good. I get it. But what does it mean over on this side, right? The satisfaction of giving back, the knowing I'm a
Yeah,
good human on this planet and I'm contributing to somebody beyond myself and I could be proud of who I am or happy with what I'm doing. Right. And that leads to a level of internal satisfaction I'm not sure everybody has, but I think a lot of people wish for.
yeah. And at the end of the day, we manage things, and if the real estate went away for some reason, if something, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen. I've heard stories from some of the people I bought from of folks who have built $1 billion empires and lost it all.
Yeah.
If I lost all the real estate, I have the experience to go rebuild it. I really don't want to, but I just suppose I could. But the people that live in the properties that would have gone away at that point, maybe a huge lawsuit happens or insurance company collapses, and stuff happens.
Let's hope it doesn't
It
happen, right? But yes, it can.
absolutely things can happen. The people that live in these communities would be better off than before I was there, and that in itself is cool. And I think that the the good times will come out of the fact that I'm really pushing a lot of energy into making these things nicer.
I think you're right. Cody, how can people either, I don't know what you offer currently. I don't know if you work with investors, you do seller financing, but if somebody's like, hey, you know what, that Cody kid's cool. I'm in that same area he's buying in. I have an apartment building. Maybe I'd consider seller financing on it. Or they want to invest with you or they want to learn from you. I think you have a mentorship program that you haven't mentioned.
Yeah, multifamilystrategy.com. Multifamily strategy is one of my first businesses,
Okay.
and I actually now I just work there basically as an employee. I sold it to my friend Christian,
Okay.
and but we built it, and we've helped a lot of people that have come from backgrounds where they probably shouldn't have been able to afford to buy real estate,
Mm.
get into deals where some of them, and one of them, he was doing this to help retire his mom. His mom passed, but I think he's at 71 units now, and he's doing it, in memory of her and pushing forward. We've got other folks that similar unit count, different stories. Everybody's coming from a different background, but multifamilystrategy.com is a place where people can really dive into that. And I just started a business YouTube channel. It will not SEO well because it is newer. But if you look up Cody Davis business, that should pop up the channel. It's really small still, but would appreciate the support there.
There you go. All right. So that's one of the ways they can support you. I promised somebody who was in my volunteer program that I would ask you how much the mentorship program cost
Yeah, the so
currently.
multifamily strategy. Yeah, multifamily strategy is $2,000,
All right. 2,000 bucks
and
for
my
the
thought
year.
is, well, that's for lifetime for
Huh.
the platform access, and there's a probably more north of 200 videos there.
Okay.
Going to be doing a more direct mentorship for business. I found that real estate is a really simple game, but people get overwhelmed in business.
Yeah.
So that'll be like $900, and that'll be direct coaching, but that'll probably be on doingcodythings.com. I figured I started a brand a while ago. I'm Cody, and I got a shirt. I'm Cody doing Cody things. So I looked up doingcodythings.com. Haven't launched the website yet, but it was 99 cents. So I bought it, and
For you.
that'll be where people can find me in the future.
Oh, I gotta say this. You just lit up. I'm just like, you knew all the stuff over here and you're good, all that. But now you're a little like, what was that little twinkle in the eye of like doing codythings.com? Like, I'm going to do Cody, and I do Cody really well. Like, just saying, like that, I think makes you happier.
I have a lot of fun helping people, and there's a lot of limiting beliefs that I set on myself. And I had to stop doing that, because if I do it, that gives permission for other people to do it.
Yep.
So it's fun helping people jump out of that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Cody, for being on the show. If you guys want to get a hold of Cody Davis, doing codythings.com. And what's your other one? It's Cody Davis.
Oh, if you just look up on YouTube, Cody Davis Win in Business, I titled every video with some version of that so that it could SEO. But I
Beautiful.
appreciate the follow.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Christina Suter, Real Estate Breakthrough. You'll be able to see another show next week, and you can find me on lots and lots of different platforms. But what's most important, guys, isn't following me. What's most important, or following Cody. You can follow both of us, because obviously we both have a passion for helping people. Are you moving yourself forward in your life, in your mindset? Use instructors like me and Cody to be able to help you do that. Get to your financial freedom, because that's where your joy is for you. Christina Suter, Real Estate Breakthrough.